Police corruption leads to the death of an informant who was helping them. In 2013, corruption within the police department of Bakersfield, California would begin to unravel. Jorge Ramirez was born to parents Justice and Jorge Ramirez Sr. on January 17, 1979. Unfortunately, by his late 30s, Jorge had been in trouble with the law several times. Over the years, he had been in and out of rehab. According to friends and family, he wanted to get his life together. Being serious about this, Jorge would make a deal with police to act as an informant, or in street slang, a snitch. At the time, he was on parole for possession of stolen property and was awaiting trial on drug charges. Police would tell him that he would get consideration on his latest drug charge if he helped them catch a dangerous criminal. The name of this criminal was Justin Harger, who was on the US Marshals Most Wanted list. Not only this, but he was a suspect in a murder. Justin just so happened to be a friend of Jorge. Sometime around August of 2013, Jorge would meet 3 officers for lunch. It was here they would discuss what Jorge's knowledge of the sale of narcotics was. Soon, one of the officers, Patrick Mara, would bring up the idea of him putting a tracer in the suspect's car. Officer Mara would also contact someone within the district attorney's office to request that Jorge's court hearing get pushed back by 30 days. This was so he could get more information. Usually with informants, they are registered within the police department's system. This allows the officers to advise and consult the informant regarding plans and operations being conducted. Furthermore, it is required that informants are approved by officers to be involved in high-risk operations. Officer Mara failed to do any of this with Jorge, leaving him without the protection he normally would have had. According to official court documents, Jorge wanted to become an informant and Mara knew this. Based on this information, Jorge likely continued to engage in highly dangerous operations because he thought Mara was going to make him one. Unfortunately, things for Jorge would turn out entirely different. On September 12th, police would visit Justin's house where they would find his mother, Sheila Sommers. Sheila would inform the police that she hadn't seen Justin in over a month, but she knew he was running from the law due to a murder. She would go on to say that she knew he was a bad person and that he was all tweaked out, but that she loved him. Her other 2 kids had died. With this, she would tell officers that she didn't want them to kill her son. After a brief exchange, she admitted that she already knew how the situation would end. According to some sources, the police stated they would kill Justin when they found him. Brandy Harger, Justin's wife, would later come forward stating, "They were telling me, you should turn him in. He should come in because if we find him, we're gonna kill him. If we find him, we're gonna shoot him." However, police deny any such statements were ever made. On September 15th at 2:21 p.m., Jorge would text an officer stating he knew the whereabouts of Justin. The officer was off duty but would reach out to his supervisors at approximately 4:15 p.m. Sometime after this, Jorge would invite Justin out for drinks and dinner. Justin, suspecting nothing, would agree to this and soon he would pick up Jorge from his home. According to phone records, Jorge would contact police a total of 34 times. He would make it abundantly clear to the officer that he was afraid of being found out. At this time, Justin was in the vehicle with him. All it would take to blow his cover would be for the dangerous madman to glance at his phone and see the messages to police. After that, he would be as good as dead. One message to police at 10:28 p.m. would read, "He's here." During the night, Jorge would keep updating police about their whereabouts. At one point, Justin would stop at a gas station to which Jorge would inform the officers. However, the 2 would leave before police had a chance to arrive. Regardless, the 2 would head over to the 4 Points Hotel on California Avenue. At approximately 12:30 a.m. on September 16th, Justin would pull into the parking lot of the hotel with Jorge in the passenger seat. Only a few moments later, police would pull up behind them. Justin would then park his vehicle facing a cinder block wall. Not before long, the officers would exit their squad cars. It was here they would tell Jorge and Justin to stay in their vehicle. Police would approach the two under the guise that it was a routine traffic stop. Unfortunately, this is where things went horribly wrong. Rather than follow orders, both Jorge and Justin would exit the SUV. Then Justin, doing as his mother predicted, would immediately fire his gun at police. A bullet would graze an officer. After this, the police would take cover and fire back, leading to a standoff. One officer would be shot in the head and another in the leg. Sometime during the gun battle, Justin's gun would jam. Police would continue to fire. Now, despite the fact that Jorge was unarmed and on their side, police would fire at him as well. A bullet would enter the left side of his face. 3 more would go through his chest, piercing his vital organs. Then, another to his left buttock, 1 in his left hip, and 1 in his right shoulder. Finally, he would be shot 3 times in his leg. In total, Jorge Ramirez would be shot by police 10 times. He would fall to the ground, bleeding heavily from his wounds. Soon, the father of 5 was left to die in a pool of his own blood on the concrete. Justin Harger would also be shot to death. Following this, both dead men would be handcuffed. After the death of Jorge and Justin, the officers involved were allowed to return to duty. However, it would soon be found that Officer Mara and several others were involved in making Jorge an informant. During investigation, it would be uncovered that they failed to go through the necessary procedures and all police involved would be disgraced. According to Jorge's father, 9 months after the untimely death of his son, he and the rest of his family were still not allowed to gather up Jorge's belongings from police evidence. On top of this, Bakersfield police would state that Jorge was a drug user who was responsible for his own death. However, an autopsy would show that his system was clean of drugs and alcohol. Police would go on to say that Jorge should have reported information, such as the fact that Justin was wearing a wig. To add insult to injury, the attorney representing the police department would claim that Jorge was attempting to set a trap for the police and that he refused to sign papers to be registered as an informant. The attorney would also state that Jorge's death was justified. Anthony Ramirez, Jorge's son, would later give an account of being attacked by police over a minor incident. During the encounter, he would be pepper sprayed, assaulted, and the police would state, "We're going to kill you just like we killed your dad. Don't fuck with the police. If you ever mess with us again, we're going to kill you just like we killed your dad." Later on, the Ramirez family would file a lawsuit against the city of Bakersfield, eventually settling for around $400,000. In a strange turn of events, Officer Morrow would later be sent to prison for conspiracy and drug charges. The officer would be caught stealing 20 pounds of crystal meth that he had seized from drug dealers. Instead of submitting the drugs to the evidence locker, Mara would sell them to businessman Noel Carter. Mara and another officer would be sent to prison for 5 years for this, as well as for accepting bribes and filing a fraudulent tax return. The judge would state that he found it unlikely that Patrick Mara would ever commit another crime and that his behavior in this case was out of character.